Hello everyone, this is Evan Abrams, and in this video we're going to get down to business. The business of how to price motion design. Now, I've been freelancing for a while, and I often get messages like, I would like a 1-minute video done. How much does it cost? ? The short answer is, it depends. And the long answer is, the rest of this video. So if you're just jumping into freelancing, the exciting world of direct-to-client work, or maybe you're struggling with selling your creative talents, or maybe you're a producer who's actually commissioning some things, in which case, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video can give everyone a little bit of clarity on the pricing of motion design services and how you might, as a freelancer, negotiate that stuff. I've been freelancing for over 10 years now, and I'll say the process has not always been easy, so I really wish a video like this was out when I started. So hopefully you can spare some of your billable hours to hang out with me on this channel and learn about the pricing of motion design. This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Make 2020 a year where you explore new skills, deepen your existing passions, and get lost in creativity with Skillshare's online classes. What you find just might surprise and inspire you. Skillshare is an online learning community that offers membership with meaning. With so much to explore, real projects to create, and the support of fellow creatives, Skillshare empowers you to accomplish real growth. Skillshare offers classes designed for real life so you can move your creative journey forward without putting your life on hold. You can learn and grow with short classes that fit your busy routine. Now, if you're hanging out on this channel, then you'll probably enjoy their courses on fine art, photography, film and video, even animation. And if you're keen to learn more about freelancing and entrepreneurship, they've got courses on that too. Personally, I'm really into this course by Thomas Frank. He's a YouTuber, author, and productivity guru. It's called Real Productivity: How to Build Habits That Last. And I can tell you, I need way more productive habits. How else am I going to get out a video every week for the rest of the year around here? Skillshare is also incredibly affordable, especially when compared to pricey in-person classes and workshops. An annual subscription is less than $10 a month. Members get unlimited access to thousands of inspiring classes with hands-on projects and feedback from a community of millions. So click the link in the description to enjoy 2 free months of premium Skillshare membership and explore your creativity. Now, there are many ways to approach pricing motion design. The simplest way is to conceive of it simply as a service. We're going to perform labor over time and get paid for that labor. The only 2 things we need to figure out are 1, how long that thing will take to do, and then 2, how much do we value our time? But inside each of those parts, we need to unpack quite a lot of stuff. How do we figure out the value of your time? The simplest minimal calculation is to first figure out how much income you expect or want to get for an entire year, and then you divide that by the amount of labor, the number of billable hours you're willing to put in to make that happen. So when we're talking about total income, we mean not just the profit that you're taking, but also all the expenses, such as your heat and your electricity and your internet and a subscription to Adobe Creative Cloud. All of these things go into your total income that you're going to need to draw down for the whole year. And once we have that total, we divide it by the total number of hours that you intend to be billing in order to bring that money in. And remember, we're only talking about billable hours. So while it's tempting to think, well, a regular work week is 40 hours and there's going to be 52 of them in the year, that isn't really the number of hours that you'll be billing for throughout the year. So plan accordingly. But once we have these 2 highly subjective numbers, we plop them into the formula, divide one by the other, and suddenly you've got your hourly rate. Multiply that by however many hours you intend to work in a regular day, and that's your day rate. But it's best not to just end our journey here. While this might give us kind of a minimum number, we don't really know how this would respond in a marketplace. Things are only worth what people are willing to pay for them. If I valued my time at $500 an hour because I intend to make $100,000 over the year and I'm only going to work 200 hours to get it, that doesn't really make sense if no one is ever willing to pay that rate. It's for this reason that I really recommend you reaching out and networking with peers around you. It's really important that you get with your local motion design community and figure out what rates actually make sense for other people who are currently living and working in the creative field. It's a great opportunity to meet with other people who are in the same position and figure out where these numbers make sense. And a lot of pricing is subjective because everyone's situation is different. So if when speaking candidly with your peers, you're ending up with even more subjective data, don't worry, there are actually a lot of surveys that have gone around to figure out what average incomes, average rates are. But again, this might be highly subjective to your locality. Hopefully with these calculations, to sort of figure out where your floor is, kicking it around with your peers, and then doing a little bit of research, you should be able to arrive at a pretty reasonable rate. But we now need the second half of this formula. We know how much your time is worth. How much of it are we going to use? Estimating how long something will take you to reasonably complete is another set of highly subjective and kind of difficult things to deal with. But we're really just trying to figure out what can reasonably be accomplished in the time that we have placed this value on. Many freelancers start out not knowing how long it would take for them personally to do a thing. I actually get asked a lot, how long would it take me to do a certain project? And ultimately, whatever answer I give is unhelpful. I don't work at the same speed as other people. I don't bill at the same rate as other people. You need to learn and understand your own capacities. This can get even more complex when you're dealing with teams of people. If you're going to give a quote for a project and you have 3 people working on it, you need to understand intimately their capacity to do that job. This is why if you're the one producer watching this video, well, thank you for coming out. You really need to understand the people who are doing the labor if you're going to give a quote on a job. Most of this insight comes from experience. If you've never made an explainer video before, then you might not know how long it will take you to personally do an explainer video. However, I can maybe help speed this along. Even if you're doing student projects or personal projects, just time yourself. Figure out how many billable hours it would have taken you to do those projects, and you'll start to have some actual data to base your quotes on. So even if you're just starting out and you have no idea how long something will take, the best thing to do is to break it down into discrete, smaller chunks into recognizable categories of labor, and then start to compile those all together. And it'll be easier to communicate to yourself and to others where all that time and where all that cost is going. And of course, it stands to reason that if you're more effective and you can do more tasks in a certain amount of time, your hourly rate should be higher than someone who does the same number of tasks slower. So in assessing your capacities, you may find that you need to adjust that hourly rate up and down depending on what you're actually doing. It's also worth understanding that some things are far more specialized and therefore more valuable because they're a more niche skill set. So those kinds of billable hours are likely going to need to be higher than more generalized skills. So once we understand your capacities, we need to figure out what this potential client is actually asking you to do. What is the scope of work they're actually trying to commission? The only way to figure that out is to engage in a meaningful dialogue with them. If we go back to the original example where we're talking about a 1-minute video, the complexity of that can vary widely. A 1-minute animated piece that's all text animation and hard cuts between scenes is going to be a lot easier than something that's, say, a blending of 2D and 3D character work with a lot of liquid morphs between things. These can both last a minute, but they can take an incredibly different amount of time to create. So we need to make sure we're engaging with the client and understanding their goals and direction. That way we're both not talking about a totally different 1-minute video. And honestly, sometimes potential clients don't really know what they want. They know they require this for some marketing directive. Most likely they've never commissioned something before in their life, and this may be the only one they ever do. So there's a big education component in here as well. Sometimes that means having to show examples back and forth. Do you want yours to be like A, B, or C? Okay, well, if we want to be like A, it's going to cost this much, and B, a little bit more. So you want to be able to present sort of ranges or tiers such that people can make a reasonable estimation of where they want to be if they don't have a very clear idea. And it's really vital to narrow in on how much of the labor you'll be doing. Will the client be providing you with assets, music, voiceover? Have they already written a script? Have they already made an AV script? How about storyboards? Who's doing those? So figuring out who is doing what phases is really vital. You can't reasonably quote on the production of something if you don't have a good understanding of all of the phases that are going to come up to it. How much of this are you expected to be doing, and is it within your capacity? You might even need to subcontract or outsource elements of this, like sound design, music. But once you have a firm concept of what this thing will be, that you can reasonably understand how many hours you're going to put into it, it's a lot easier to then look at your day rate, estimate based on your capacity, and figure out a number for this thing. But wait, there's more. And of course, that's the phrase you know is going to come with some kind of value proposition. It's important to remember that even though we're calculating based on the amount of labor and the value of that labor, a motion design piece or pieces can have value beyond simply the hours it takes to make them. If, for example, you're generating some kind of unique IP or characters or some kind of a thing that has a value beyond itself, you need to consider that when making the evaluation of how much something costs. Then we're getting into issues of licensing and different forms of creative services, so that would probably need a whole other video on its own. For now, it's worth just considering what is the true value of this thing I'm putting out there. Ideally, all business entities would be commissioning something to gain more value from it. We produce advertisements so that people will buy more of the product and we will make back more than it costs to generate the advertisement, we would hope. So that's something to always be considering when you're creating something that has value. Is it worth more than the time and materials it takes to generate? But once you have arrived at a price, it is time to communicate it and likely negotiate it with your potential client. Now, I've been saying potential client this whole time because clients are people who you do labor for in exchange for money. So in this initial phase, they're not quite your client yet. They're more of a lead or a prospect. And it's important to remember that not all prospects, not all leads are going to be the right fit for you. When you present a price, there might be a big gap. You think this project would reasonably be worth $8,000 and they say, no, it's probably only worth like $5,000. Or they have some budgetary restriction, or they have some subjective information that they've already cobbled together and they have an assumption about what this should be worth. By having solid pricing systems that you can itemize and demonstrate why something would cost what you've said it costs, it's a lot easier to say, all right, well, we'll just spend less in this area or remove these items or do a cheaper version of this if there are all of these items to actually talk about. If we're just putting one lump number on a project, that's very subjective and nebulous. It becomes a matter of opinion rather than an itemized list of things that we can actually move around and manipulate. And ultimately, not everyone is going to be able to afford the price of wonderful things. You are a talented and unique individual, and motion design is highly specialized labor. So not everyone has the marketing budget to afford these things. So while a potential client may think your value is down here, but you know that it's up here, that's just not going to work out, and there's no harm there. Not everyone can afford highly specialized labor given their limited marketing budgets. That's just how it is. The onus is not on you to conform to the lowest available budget. Certainly there is wiggle room, but if you go back to your initial calculations, remember at the core of your rates is an income level that needs to be satisfied. So never devalue your labor costs below that threshold. But the short end of it is, if you're able to demonstrate how you arrived at a certain pricing structure, people are more likely to agree to it because it's less unknown, less nebulous, and less of just a shot in the dark. Now, this is just one take on pricing. There are other forms, there's other methods, other systems. Some firms productize what they do into a menu, and people can pick A, B, or C at whatever durations. They can put a rubric together. That makes it very simple, but perhaps less bespoke. And all of this is subject to change. So as your year goes on, as your career in freelance changes, the way you price things may also change, and you should likely revisit this stuff every year. Your value as a designer will only increase, so it makes sense that your rates would also increase, and for what it's worth, the cost of living and inflation are pretty much always going up too. But hopefully you have found some value here in this video. If you have any questions about this kind of thing, please hit me up in the comments and I'll try to get to you, or hit me up on Twitter. I'm at EC Abrams on there. I love to chat about the business end of motion design when I'm able. I've been doing this for 10 years and some people are tired of hearing me talk about it. If you've enjoyed watching, listening, and learning here on the EC Abrams channel, then please subscribe. We get up new tutorials about once a week. Usually we're talking about technical aspects of motion design, After Effects, visual effects, but sometimes we get down to business too. We also have a weekly live show that's coming back every Friday, so stay tuned for that. And there's going to be a whole host of other series throughout the year, so make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. And if you do, I will see you around the internet. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.